so I want to show you a little bit about what we do for working with child aggression. Now, child aggression can be some of the most difficult stuff to deal with because of just the subject matter. We can't put kids in danger. You know, when we're working with a human aggressive dog, you know, I can work with that dog and work the dog through the problem, and that's fine because I know what I'm doing and things like that. We work with dogs, you know, dog aggressive dogs and things like that. You know, we can choose the right kind of dogs. But when we work with dogs that have child aggression, we have to be incredibly, incredibly careful. And so that's why this guy's wearing a muzzle. We're going to have my daughter come out here in a little bit. But he's wearing a muzzle just for safety's sake. Now, where he is he came to us about a week and a half ago after having bit a few kids. After he came in here and was lunging at everybody. There was actually another kid in here, a client's kid, and he tried to lunge and attack that kid. And so, in any case, he came in here, you know, with quite a heavy record of being aggressive and going after kids and things like that. And so, the first things that we do, we don't go directly and work with the kids, you know, because we've got to set the right foundation first. And so, like I said, the day he walked in here, he was out of control. And so now we've spent the past week and a half getting him under control and working with him and teaching him certain things and things like that. And so now he's ready for us to start working around kids. Now, we call this immersion therapy, you know, to where, you know, once he's doing well, now we have to get him around his trigger, but we've got to do it in a way that's safe. And so when we're doing that, again, in this case, I'm going to have a muzzle. Depending on what you're doing, you may have a muzzle, you may not. But what we're going to do is just simply get him around kids and do obedience. Have him sit, have him lie down, have him heel, you know, stuff like that. Because if he does that, and he's in the presence of his trigger, because right now he knows how to be in the presence of his trigger in a very chaotic state of mind. You know, and like I say, in his case, his trigger is kids. And so he knows how to be in the presence of his trigger in the wrong state of mind. So what we have to start doing is immerse him around his triggers, but maintain the right state of mind. And so I say that because, like, we get a lot of people that say, oh, you know, my dog's aggressive towards this, he just needs more socialization. And the reality is he probably doesn't need more socialization. What he needs, well, I mean, in a way that he does, but what he needs or she needs is some really great obedience structure, know how to think properly, and then be around stuff. And so like I say, for those that are thinking my dog's aggressive towards dogs, we need to go to the dog park more. Or my dog's aggressive towards kids, we need to get him around kids more. My dog's aggressive to people, we need to get him around people more. That's not where you start. You have to start with the right mind frame. And so we've got him right now, he's a little bit stressed because of the muzzle. You know, he's worn the muzzle before, but, you know, this is, it's still fairly new to him, and so just having the muzzle on is shutting him down a little bit. But that's okay for now. So what I'm going to do, sit. Good boy. Hey, Abby, I'm going to have you just kind of walk in. And so again, our immersion therapy is just simply getting him in a structured state of mind. And boy, he doesn't love that muzzle. And then, so Abby, I'm going to have you come walk right there, right in that little corner. And so what I want to do is kind of judge his reaction here. That's fine right there. Rasta, come here. And so, so if he's dwelling on his trigger for too long, come here. Yeah, you don't like that muzzle, huh, buddy? If he's dwelling on his trigger for too long, come here. We get him moving, you know, get him thinking about me. Now, we can create, you know, focus by doing what we call spatial awareness, making him aware of his space as it relates to me. And so as I saw him looking at her too heavily, I create some space. Come here. You know, just have him come to me. Because what happens when the dog turns around is physically he turns around, and so in the case of aggression, you know, he's not able to be aggressive, but mentally he turns around. And mentally he decides, okay, I'm going to pay more attention to you than I am to the thing that causes me stress. And so what he's doing right now, and I haven't given him a single correction. Yes, we've got training collars on, but I haven't used a single one. He's going into avoidance behavior. And so he's very aware that my daughter's right there. You know, she's 5 feet away. He's incredibly aware of that. And so, but he's in avoidance because when a dog is stressed, he's got 3 options available to him. He's got fight, flight, and avoidance. Now, again, kids used to stress him out, and so he would choose fight. He would bite them or growl or, you know, what have you. He's not much of a flight dog, and so he's never one that ran away from stuff. And so now that his mind is right, at least much more right, you know, his mind is thinking more, you know, he's still stressed by the presence of my daughter, but he's able to process it much differently, and instead of lashing out, he's internalizing it and going into avoidance behavior. Now, avoidance behavior can be a really good thing because it's not our ultimate goal, but avoidance can lead to acceptance. And by acceptance, I mean, you know, a dog who just accepts that kids are hanging out with him, and he's fine with it. And so right now, he's not doing anything wrong, but in his mind, he's still a little bit stressed. But if we get him around kids, and he goes into avoidance, we get him around kids, he goes into avoidance, what we'll find after a little bit of time is that he's like, oh, there's nothing really wrong with kids. And so people ask all the time, how does the dog get kid aggressive? Again, it's a fear-based thing, and where does fear come from? Fear comes from two things. It comes from genetics, and it comes from the dog's upbringing. And so genetically, some dogs have less tolerance for stress. And kids are different. They're smaller. They run around more. They talk different. Everything's different. So for some dogs, it's just a genetic thing. Other dogs, it's an upbringing thing to where maybe they weren't exposed to a whole lot of kids when they were young, or maybe their exposure to kids when they were young was not positive. It stressed them out. The kids were too rough, too over the top with them, and it caused them to develop these fear issues. But so in any case, like I say, as he's in avoidance right now, this is a very good thing in the sense that it's not fight, and in the sense that he's just he's kind of letting himself relax a little bit. And you probably can't see in the camera in the video, but his body is tense. He's tight. But again, we compare this with a week and a half ago. We're just simply seeing a kid. He's flipping out. This is a much better result. And again, I think some of the tension is even due just to the muzzle. But in any case, what we need to fix a lot of these, a lot of this aggression stuff is first get that foundation that we need, and then we do the immersion therapy and help the dog through it that way. So not a whole lot to show in this video because he's just simply sitting there, which is great. We're actually going to go on a walk now, and one of the best things we can do for a dog like this is get him to walk with his trigger. So there's other things that we're going to do, but more than anything, I wanted you to understand the concept so that then you can go on and apply this kind of stuff with your dog. So get to work.